Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show to find out how those in sports, music, and entertainment made their mark. Joining me today is a native of Rome, New York, and the author of the book, The Accidental Gangster, From Insurance Salesman to Hollywood Fixer. He was a mover and a shaker who did favors for top celebrities and resides in Beverly Hills, California. And at one time, was involved in illegal activities such as check cashing, credit card, and insurance scams, cable boxes, drugs, and robberies. He ended up spending 62 months in prison and is known as the mob boss of Hollywood. Please welcome to the show, Ori Spado. Ori, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Tommy. How are you? Thank you.
I'm doing well. I read your book, and for my listeners out there, there's going to be a link in the show notes for you to get your hands on a copy of The Accidental Gangster. The book is very clean, it's neat, and it's a very easy read. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure you will as well. Ori, my man, you did a fabulous job on the book.
Thank you very much.
Let's begin here, because this was one of my questions that I had reading the book. Did anybody during this whole time of yours look at you not so much as a fixer or a mob boss, but possibly as a con man?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be a fair statement then.
The people that I conned.
You had some legitimate deals as well as illegitimate deals at the same time. And you had a mind for business. Where did that mindset come from for you?
I began my career as an insurance salesman for a Prudential insurance company. And one thing, I didn't graduate from college, but I took college courses both in Hawaii and at Syracuse University. I took business courses in economics.
Okay.
So business was always a part of my life. And I used to read the Wall Street Journal, those things all the time. But my insurance background, you got to be knowledgeable. Selling is 98% understanding human beings, 2% product knowledge. And, you got to be able to converse about a variety of things when you're sitting down with people. And especially when you're going in to sell a group insurance to a business, you better know what you're talking about.
Agree. In your book, at the end of each section, there's two words that says, go figure. Where did this statement come from? And you like to use that.
Yes, I do. Go figure. I should coin that phrase. Yes. It's just, I use it in conversations with some people, and when I end them, I go figure.
Go figure. Ori, what does the word friendship mean to you?
Friendship is a very important word. Going through life, there's an old saying, if you could count 3 friends on 3 fingers, you're a very lucky man. A friend is somebody that's there for you during good times, bad times, or whatever. Somebody that listens to you. And somebody who loves you, Mm-hmm. I had 3 great friends. My 3 children. But, I have other friends. Yes, I do. In the life that I led, you have a lot of people that you call friends, but are not your friends.
Understood. And that was, and the reason I'm setting this up for my listeners, I want them to try and get a background of where your life went to. And I want them to understand that there's the reasons why some of this stuff happened was due to friendships and business minds and that kind of stuff. So I want to get my listeners to understand that when we get into the nuts and bolts of what Ori's life was, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now is going to come back into play. Ori, ballpark, I don't even know if you could guess, but I'm curious. The amount of money that in your lifetime that you have acquired and spent? When I'm reading this book, I'm like, I should have started a tally from page 1 to the end. Is just how much money that you had brought in and then had turned around and spent back out.
If you can come up with that number, you will make me violently ill.
It's got to be in the millions.
You know, I got to tell you, you know, my mother tried to teach us kids to save, save, save. I come from a family of 6 children. I'm the only one that never saved. Even when I made a lot of money, yeah, there were times I'd have $100,000 or $200,000. I'd have it in a bank box, you know. And I mean, I remember days I go and I just make sure the soldiers are lined up properly, you know. And then the banker would call me and say, the FBI were here, they're coming back with warrant. And I had to run over and get it out of there and, you know, and then start putting it in other locations. And, you know, I spent a lot of money. And one thing that people do not understand about people like me is we help people out. We're always for the underdog. You know, we make a score and we think it's easy, you know, psychologically. All right. So you're sitting there and you got 50 grand in your cash laying around and you hear that the woman down the street is having a tough time paying her rent and feeding her children. And we would go over there and give her a few grand. All right. And not even think about it. But those are the kind of things that we do. We're for the underdog. We take care of our friends. We take care of our families. And, you know, I mean, I've had money stashed in different places. And there's certain people who call me up and say, hey, we're having a tough time. I want to buy a car for so-and-so. I take it out. What do you need? 25 grand? Go ahead. You know, you never ask for it back.
Right.
But maybe something to go buy, you might ask that person for a loan of $500. You're not going to get it.
Do you think you got too big too fast?
I always had a saying in legitimate business, the two worst things in business is no growth and fast growth. I've always had a tendency for fast growth. Even in my legitimate businesses, when I would put sales forces together, I mean, I'm excellent at motivating people, getting them to go out, to make the sales. I only hire people strictly on a commission basis. Somebody asks me for a salary, I show them to the door, okay? Because they're not looking to work. Mm-hmm. And I would always have fast growth. And I grew too quick. One company I had called American Check Guarantee, I grew so rapidly. And before you knew it, I had the whole floor over here on Wilshire and Santa Monica Boulevard. And then computers. I didn't know nothing about computers, but I needed them. I bought them. I had like 17 of them. I had people working, one guy in charge of them. And then that guy don't come to work one day and nobody can turn their computers on. So what do I got to do? I got to send 2 guys to that guy's house. They literally picked him up in the chair he was sitting in and brought him to the office.
Chair and all, we're going.
Then and I made him give the information to other people how to turn the system on. And then he had the audacity to go to the labor board and try to get money from me. And I remember it was over on Sunset and Coanga. So I brought a friend of mine that day, and I walked in, we were scheduled for like 2 o'clock. And I walk in, he's sitting down. His name was Anthony, I won't forget it. I said, Anthony, how are you, my friend? Oh, Ori, I'm good. Hi. Anthony, I want you to say hello to Dominic. And then I walk out. I'm standing outside in front of the building. And a few minutes later, you see Anthony running out, getting in his car.
Dominic had something to help with.
Yeah.
Ori, where did your love for Hollywood begin?
A love for Hollywood? I don't know if it was ever a love that
Okay.
I had for Hollywood. Hollywood is a way different type of city than anywhere else in the country. Uh, you're dealing with egotistical people, people who are conceited, who only think of themselves. And, some of them, hey, okay, maybe they deserve a little. Uh, Going back to I was always for the underdog. I was never in love with Hollywood. Hollywood became part of my life. I like Hollywood. I like the action, the activity, but it's this long, slow process. And the type of things that I did, I mean, there were a lot of things I did for no money at all. I would hear about there'd be companies up on Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, were promising young actors and actresses. You got to remember, these young kids come to this town. They got stardom in their eyes. A lot of them, they work their asses off. They got to work several jobs. Some of them got to give blood in order, to get a meal for that evening. And then you had these guys trying to scam them out of, $400 or $500. Say, we'll take your photos, but we guarantee you parts of movies. Okay? And they don't even give them the goddamn photos. I would literally go with a couple guys and shut their doors and make them leave town because I just didn't like them taking advantage of these young kids who come here who do really work hard. But I never actually could say, hey, I love Hollywood. It might be the opposite.
Okay. If you will, to my listeners, speak regarding the shakedown at a brothel in Hawaii.
Jesus Christ, that was one of my first in my life, big ones. And I was stationed at Schofield Barracks outside of Waiwa, Hawaii. And a guy named Harry from New Jersey come in. He had this friend and worked at this, telling about this thing. And, if we get girls to go there, we can go over and get a girl for nothing, and all that there. And I was with another friend of mine, Joe, from Utica, New York. I says, why do we got to do that there? I said, we can get laid anytime we want to. We're in Hawaii. There's so many freaking girls. I says, here's what we got to do. Those people are making money. I want part of that. So the three of us put a thing together. Of course, I'm going to be the one. I start calling the guy who's running this place. Finally, he goes in and gives me, on Saturday, I'm going to meet him. I had to borrow a friend's car, and I drove to the house, and I'll never forget it. The girls come out all sexy on the porch. By this time, they all know my name, okay? All right? Ori, come on in. He's getting ready. Come on. They wanted to get me in the house. No, that was the first no. I said, nah, I'll wait here. Have him come out. Oh, or you could have me. I go, thank you, honey. I'm not interested. I mean, they try to do everything to get me in the house. Finally, he comes out. He gets in the car. And I took him out to a sugarcane field. Drove right into the sugarcane field. And there was a little opening. I stopped the car. I said, let's talk. I start talking. Tell him what the new deal in town is. And he puts a gun in my mouth. And I urged him to pull the trigger. I don't know why. You got to remember, I was 18, 19 years old, but I had steel balls. I just knew this guy was not going to pull that trigger. And he didn't. I said, because I said, look, you can kill me and leave me right here. I said, but tomorrow they're going to find your fucking body with your dick cut off and your head cut off in the fucking water. I said, don't think nobody knows where I'm at. And so then he put the gun away. We went to a diner. We had a bite to eat, and he explained to me he's not the owner. It's owned by some heavyweight guys out of Waikiki, out of Diamond Head, very exclusive area. And now I find out these people owned a few homes. These were fucking heavyweight guys. So now he's calling those people, and now they want to meet with me. And now I go back to the barracks. I explain everything to Joe and Harry, and they back right out of the fucking deal. Now there I am by myself, and I got to think and think. I'm not going to go down to Diamond and meet these fucking guys and be the one to end up in fucking with my dick cut off in the water dead. So what I did was, by this time they were calling me. So in the evening, you always knew the CQ, charge of quarters. So when they called one night, I told the CQ, tell them that Ori got transferred out to Vietnam.
Ori, there's another, I love this one. How did you get a job typing, but you either didn't type or you failed typing class?
You should have seen my typing teacher was, we had Griffiths Air Force Base. She was a substitute teacher. She was gorgeous. Now, you said I could say anything I want to her, right?
Yes.
Well, I took typing class just as an easy course to, you know what I mean? And she would come and lean in front of the typewriter and say, look straight ahead. And she wore sexy dresses. I'm looking at the most beautiful breasts. And she would go ASDF, JKL semi. All right, and I'm there and I'm doing it, but I'm looking at her breasts. I mean, I was, Jesus Christ. I mean, and that was the extent of my typing. But when the first sergeant came out one day and said, who knows how to type? And I raised my hand. I ended up, because they wanted me to type after action report, there was a couple other guys, after action reports for 7 majors that came back from Vietnam. So we were hanging around headquarters all week. Actually, it was a lot of fun. And then I got to know the people in headquarters, and this one particular sergeant and major, they loved me, and their guy was leaving, so they asked me if I would take the job, and I did. And you got to remember this. I'm in the Army a year and a half. You're supposed to get your PFC automatically after 8 months. I didn't have mine. A year and a half. I'm still a private E1. And the first order, he looked at me, he said, all right, Spado, the first order here, type up your promotion to PFC. I'm not having a private in my office. That was the first thing. Then the next thing he said, type up your transfer from the 13th Artillery from C unit to headquarters. That was the next thing I did. And then I was there, and now you know it. New lieutenants are coming in. I'm giving them instruction. I'm helping with their housing. And, I was in close with the guy in supply, a lot of money going back and forth. Hey, look at, Lieutenant, look, they're going to put you over here in the regular type of homes. You don't really want to be there. You got a wife, you got 2 kids. Okay? We could arrange something. I can get you better furniture, too. And, then I'd introduce him to the head guy, and, then the money would come. And I got a little cut of that. No, it was a great job.
As we move on, you end up becoming friends with Sonny Franzese, and we talked about friendship. As it goes on a little bit more, Ori, you were indicted on 10 counts of mail fraud and 1 count of stopping payment on a check. Did you ever consider, or maybe you did, go to Sonny for help on that?
No. Go to ask him for the money to bail me out of that there?
Yeah.
I never thought of it. When I was selling my business, I was trying to sell it to a guy named Bob Russell on Long Island. And I had a meeting with him in his office. And he tried to say, well, I heard a rumor. It was this guy, Jim Gianarelli, got a hold of him and tried to say I owed gambling debts to the boys. And I remember being in Bob's office. I said, Bob, you either want to buy my business or not. I said, do you think I have any problems with the boys? I said, I'll tell you what. I said, right down the road lives a dear friend of mine. His name's Sonny Franzese. I said, do you think I got problems with any bookies? You're friends with Sonny? I said, yeah. He said, no, you got no problem. But he couldn't come up with the money anyways at the end. He was out of trust.
What was your relationship with Frank Russo?
Frank Russo, you got to remember, was a lawyer.
Okay.
Not only was he a lawyer, he knew everybody in the country because his father was the boss of upstate New York at that time, back in the day before I was around. And my grandfather, on Saturday mornings, Frank would open the cellar doors only for a few people to have a meeting with his father. And my grandfather was there every Saturday. My grandfather was a made man. They were the Calabrian. I'm Calabrese. I'm not Sicilian. And Frank's office was downstairs of mine. He owned the building. I was renting from him. We became extremely close. And every time he go to New York, I was going to New York with him. We stayed at the Warwick Hotel. We had a deal with the manager there. I had a suite. $1,500 a month I was paying. I had it for 35 years. And with Frank, I met a lot of the people. So I met Frank Costello, Russell Buffalino. Then when I was selling my insurance agency, or trying to sell it, through another friend of mine in Philadelphia, who was a brother of Angelo Bruno. Angelo Bruno arranged a meeting for me with Carlo Marcello. And I went to New Orleans and met with them, tried to sell him the business. Unfortunately, at that time, he wanted to buy it. But, he said, at this time, I can't. And the reason being, he was being investigated for another insurance thing.
How, Ori, did you end up then become known as a fixer for top celebrities?
All right, here again, that happened quite by accident. I became very close friends with Dino De Laurentiis and Ralph Serpi. The offices used to be right over here on Cannon Drive, one of his first offices. And they were having a problem. They were running behind budget because some actor was giving the director a difficult time. And, this happens quite often. It's starting to happen more now. Because some of these actors, they think of who the hell they are, and they think they know more than the director. And, and they create problems that makes the film budget go behind. And so I said, I'll handle that for you. And I went over on the set. And, I grabbed hold of the actor. I brought him into his trailer, and I handled it. We had a nice talk. No guns, no threats. I just explained to him, you got to do the right thing here. Yeah, you're great. You got a big name. But I don't give a fuck how big your name is. To me, it don't mean nothing. we're no different. You put your pants on the same way I do, one leg at a time.
I agree with you there. When was the first time you heard the FBI had inquired about Ori Spado?
Actually, who actually told me that? Because I was being investigated by what they call the Gangster Squad. Okay, the Sean Penn played in the movie The Gangster Squad. It really exists. They were investigating me. It's actually the LAPD OIC, Los Angeles Police Organized Crime Unit. Guy's name was Stephen Sewell, and Dave Bannister were the two head guys, and they were the guy that had their whole crew on me. And then one day he approached me. He said, well, Spado, you're really getting a name now. Now the FBI is looking at you. He said, the FBI don't like what we do because we make more money than the FBI agents. They do. LAPD detectives make more money than FBI agents. And, there's a little rift between them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, some days I'd look out my patio, there'd be so many fucking cars. I didn't know who was the FBI, who was the organized crime. It was crazy.
On the heels of that, because you have been very openly about not only to youngsters about not to follow in your footsteps, not to be in that path and try to become a gangster. The book hits on that. If you would talk about the stress then of living, of always being watched and followed.
I'm glad you asked that question. People think it's a glamorized life because the movies make it look like it was glamour. Each and every day you got to wake up in the morning. You got to think how you're going to make $1, okay? Because we don't get paychecks. We're not citizens. We're not getting a paycheck on a Friday, okay? So we got to hustle. We got to come up with a scheme, whatever we're going to do every day. And we got to do that knowing that we're being monitored, we're being followed. I mean, I developed a thing out here where, I would always have somebody waiting for me. I pull up because I always went to the best restaurants in town. And I pull up, I give the valet my car. I know a couple cars behind is the FBI or whatever. And I'd walk into the restaurant. I'd walk right out the back door to the kitchen. I'd have a friend of mine waiting in another car. I'd go out, boom, 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 do my business. And they're sitting in the fucking restaurant waiting for me. Okay? I did that so many times. The one time I came out of the Polo Lounge of the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I'm waiting for the valet to bring the car. An FBI agent actually come up to me and said, Spado, we love following you and watching you because we get to eat in the best restaurants in town. I said, well, you guys owe me something then.
You had a hit put out on you 3 times. One of them, from my understanding, came from Sonny, but you weren't informed that you had a hit on you. Why didn't the FBI tell you that you had a hit out on your life when my understanding is they're supposed to?
They're supposed to. They ran to John Gotti Jr. and told him, but they didn't come to Ori Spado. Why? That was in one of my motions that I wrote personally. I wrote a prosecutorial misconduct motion. I wrote several motions. Some are at the end of my book, as well as letters that I wrote. One to Sonny, one to his stepson, Michael, my family, my dear mate, Joey Powell in London. And the last one is to the U.S. House of Representatives. I hope somebody there reads it.
Yes.
That happened because there was an informant Sonny wanted me to do business with by the name of Guy Furtado. Guy Furtado actually hurt us more than Sonny's son, Johnny, who was an informant against us also. But Guy Furtado had numerous tapes. And the FBI let him get away with a lot of things. And my friend Ricky, a Jamaican boy, he got arrested, was in downtown Los Angeles, MDC. His wife came to me with 2 Mexicans that he owed $500,000 to. And the money was on the streets in Brooklyn. And so here's Guy Furtado sitting on my couch. Here's the Mexicans. Here's Ricky's wife. And I knew who the guys were back in Brooklyn, in Bedford-Stuyvesant area. I called him up. He said, Ori, Ricky don't understand. We're converting this to crack. It takes longer, but we got 100,000 ready right now. And the informant said, I could have somebody get that right now. I said, good, send your guy, go get that now. He did. He sent me back 50 grand once he got back to New York. That was it. That's all we ever saw of that money. And so he starts telling the Mexicans, you know, that we want 50 kilos. Every 2 weeks, he's got the truck with all the surrogate departments to transfer it back to New York, and we're going to make all this money. Now, these Mexicans are not going to give us 50 kilos on the cuff until they get their $500,000 back. All right? But he starts talking, and then everything's got to go through Ori. Everything's got to go through Ori. Then, when he goes back to New York, he goes to the acting captain, Michael Carapano, and starts telling him about all the money they're going to make with Ori on this cocaine deal. No, I never dealt cocaine. I did deal marijuana. That there, I can say I did. But I never dealt cocaine. So now he's telling Michael Carapano about all this money. And the deal ain't happening. But one time, me, my little con that I had, Furtado called me, what's going on? I said, you got to send me 50 grand. They need a deposit. And of course, he wasn't sending the 50 grand. I said, well, they were here. They brought the stuff here. I told them, take it back. And I said that on the fucking, I was being taped. They never were here with it. I was just trying to con him out of money. But in the meantime, the deal ain't happening. Carapano starts asking. Carapano never had one word with me asking me about what's going on. Is this happening? Nothing like that there. And so Carapano asked Furtado, what the hell's going on with his deal? And he says, I think Ori's doing a deal and he's screwing us all out of the money. Carapano gets pissed off, goes to his uncle, who is Sonny, and gets permission to whack me. And it was on tape, and honestly, it was that tape that really helped me get severed from the trial. Because what happened, when we were going for lemony motions, his lawyer put a motion in to try to sever Sonny from the trial, or to prelude me from using that information. The judge said, there's no way I'll ever sever Mr. Franzese. But I read one of Mr. Spado's motions last night. Maybe Mr. Spado should be severed. And he looked at the U.S. attorney. He said, you got till noon tomorrow to convince me why I should not sever Mr. Spado. So we all had to go back to court the next day. And I remember Sonny was on a bail. He walked in, hey, buddy, I hear you're upset with me. We've been friends for, at that time, it was over 35 years. I said, Sonny, I'm not upset. I said, I'm disappointed. I said, because you used to call me for anything and say I had to come in for dinner. I said, you didn't call me for this. If you would have, we all wouldn't be sitting here now. And I said, I got no hard feeling. I'm a man. I know the rules. So, no, I never actually held that back. I was disappointed in him, but we still remained friends right up until his death. But the next day we went back to court, and the judge said, Mr. Spado, I had to deny your motion for severance. But what I'm going to do, if you could explain to me and to the court in legal terms that evidence that you want to use could be used for you or against you. I stood up. I explained inculpatory or exculpatory. I did it all in legal language. He said, Mr. Spado, I'm convinced you know what you're talking about. He says, what's your choice? I said, I'll take the severance. And boom, I was out of that fucking courtroom. And that was the luckiest day, one of the luckiest days of my life. Okay? Because if I would have gone to trial with Sonny Franzese, they would have shut my lights out.
You'd still be there.
I'd still be in prison today.
Yeah. Ori, what did Jimmy Caci mean to you?
Jimmy Caci to me was like a brother. And what most people don't know, and I don't, you're in Las Vegas, maybe you heard of Jimmy Caci.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Caci was the underboss out here, the boss of Palm Springs. And Jimmy was really a great guy. I love Jimmy. And I talked to Jimmy right up until his death. I mean, I was calling him from prison. I just love Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy he'd be here on a Monday morning, 7 a.m., he'd be at my door. And he'd be here until Friday. And if we made money, which we normally did, because Jimmy was able to bring me a lot of deals, but he never knew how to transform them into money. Financial deals, I knew how. And I tell you something, Jimmy couldn't get past taking the 10 freeway. Couldn't get past the freaking casino. He'd be broke. One time, we made a score. I had the money waiting in New York, upstate New York for us. And Jimmy and I took a trip, a car trip. First place we stopped was Arizona to Florida, New Orleans, then to Florida to New York, and then upstate New York. He drops me off at my daughter on Christmas Eve. And there I gave him his half of the money. After Christmas, I took the train into Buffalo. He meets me at the airport, puts me in a hotel. Next morning he calls me, he says, listen, you got to meet me on the corner of Delaware and such and such. And I'm thinking, there's a fucking OTB place there. I said, Jimmy, don't tell me that you fucking blew that money. Just get over here, get in a cab, don't worry about it. All right? And I get there, and he's pacing up, back and forth, waiting for me. I get out. I said, Jimmy, you pissed away that fucking money in a few days. I'm not talking $5,000-$10,000 here. I'm talking 100. Okay?
In a couple days.
Yeah. I said, Jimmy, don't worry. I got a guy coming. He said, all you got to do, he says, is loan me X number of dollars. We'll make it all back. I got a guy who owns horses coming in from Canada. I said, I ain't fucking loaning you the money, Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy was a pisser. I wake up in the morning, okay? He's already got the coffee ready. He'd be on my couch. He'd had the newspaper folded perfectly with just the horse races. His nickname was Horse. And his knee'd be going up and down like this. He says, just loan me $240. Let's go to the track today. We'll win $40,000. I said, no, Jimmy, we're going to fucking work. And you know, it was funny. We'd be driving around, and I got to have it from a young kid. We go by a church. I go like this. I make the sign of the cross. And Jimmy's looking at me. He said, how the fuck can you make the sign of the cross? He says, and we're on our way to fucking rob somebody. I said, well, Jimmy, I do it. I said, you should do it too. I said, you Catholic. I swear to God, it wasn't long after we drive past the church and I see Jimmy go like this.
He's following your footsteps.
Yeah.
Ori, what is your personal feelings on RICO?
It's illegal and unconstitutional.
And why do you say that?
Why do I say it? Because it is. I think someday the Supreme Court will find that to be illegal and unconstitutional. It's almost impossible to beat RICO charges. They designed it. How could they charge you with a conspiracy to do something and then charge you again with a RICO conspiracy for the same thing? And, that was written so good that the guy, I think it was from, what college was he from? The professor that wrote that act. He wouldn't even know how to unwrite it.
I think it was one of the Ivy League schools, like a Columbia or something like that.
Columbia, Cortland, Cornell?
Cornell, somewhere. Yeah, one of those two.
Like that. I mean, when I first got the book, if my trial would have happened here in Los Angeles, I would have had a dream team of lawyers. Because everybody knew me out here. I would have had Anthony Brooklier, Tom Mazzaro, Dana. I would have had a dream team. But I ended up in Brooklyn. My peers are not in Brooklyn. I lived there over 40 years. My two crimes, the two predicate acts, were here in Los Angeles, not New York. But there I was in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm interviewing lawyer after lawyer. My first question to him was, what do you know about the RICO? And you know what? Lawyers could not give me the fucking answer. Starting to study the law, started writing my own motion. I submitted motions knowing that my judge read everything that went across his desk. Even though he would reject them because the lawyers did not submit it, I knew he read them. So all that benefited me eventually in the long run. But, the RICO, look at it. For example, I ended up pleading guilty. I took a plea agreement of 97 to 110 months. More than likely, I would have gotten the 97 months. When we went for sentencing, the judge gave me 60 days for a robbery. But then he says, Mr. Spado, my hands are tied by Congress, and it's a minimum mandatory sentence for the gun charge. I have to give you 60 months. Your sentence is 62 months. There again, I lucked out. He looked at the U.S. attorney because they were yelling and screaming. And he said, you charged Mr. Spado twice for the same crime. That's why he's getting 62 and not 97. And 2 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court found that the 924C gun charge is unconstitutional and illegal and should be vacated from the records. And they were releasing people from prison after that there. I know a lot of other guys that had 924, got them vacated. I wrote a letter to my judge. I told him I heard about it on the news and read about it, and that I'd like to get it. I figure all he's got to do is a stroke of a pen and vacate the goddamn thing, because the U.S. Supreme Court said vacate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, doesn't it make sense? But not in this fucking government. Okay? I don't hear nothing. A month later, I get a Federal Express downstairs. I open up, it's from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Saying, Elizabeth Geddes. First page says, yeah, Mr. Spado's charge should be vacated. Boy, I'm happy as hell. I get on the elevator, I come up, I sit in my chair. Now I'm reading the rest of it. I get to page 4. It says, should Mr. Spado's 924C charge be vacated, then we hereby bring back charges 1 and 10. I go, what the fuck? Those were dismissed without prejudice, which means they can't bring them back. And she's trying to bring them back. The statute of limitation had run out almost 3 times. I go, what the fuck? I mean, who am I to think I'd do this to me? You follow me?
Yeah.
So I wrote the judge another letter saying, Your Honor, I wrote this here without consulting with an attorney. I just want to forget about it, let it go. I'm fucking 70. I was 74 years old then. You know, what difference is it going to make to me? But it does make a difference. Because that's a violent crime, a gun charge.
Absolutely.
And so the next thing I hear of, he appoints a lawyer back there. And I had this lawyer call me up. Tell me, oh, don't worry. You got a court date February 4th. I said, first of all, I'm not coming back. I said, I ain't going to fucking New York in February, first of all. I said, secondly, I don't want to ever step court in that fucking courthouse in Brooklyn again. Because it's just something I know that something goes wrong. All right, the marshals take him downstairs. All right, the cuffs go on and, you're back in fucking prison. And so we went back and forth, and then he called the U.S. attorney and said, don't worry. She said, all you got to do is come back here and sign a new plea agreement. I said, why do I got to sign a new plea agreement when I got one dated September 2010? This is 2021. You know what I mean? Just take it off the record. So I got rid of that lawyer. I said, tell them to withdraw everything. I'll keep it as is. Now I got my lawyer here who's writing a letter to the judge saying that I do want to vacate it. I do not want to go to Brooklyn. Let's do it by Zoom. I'm not signing a new plea agreement.
Ori, you went to prison at 63. As you said, you spent 62 months in there. Who was Ori Spado going into prison versus the man that came out?
Well, the man that came out was a different man that went in. It didn't happen immediately. But, like I said, I'm very well-read individual. I read over 300 books in prison. Been reading all my life. I'm reading every night as it is right now. I still do. It's something that I urge all young men to do. Read something, okay? Whether it's a business magazine, newspaper, but read. That's how you learn things. One thing that I knew when I came out of prison, after listening to all of the discovery, and you got to remember, here I am 2,500 miles away in California. And when I was listening to all the information, I'm hearing my friends talk about me. What about Ori? I mean, I heard all the jealousy. Ori lives in a big apartment in Beverly Hills. He drives a brand new Lexus. Okay, Ori walks down the street in Beverly Hills. Everybody knows him. Well, hello, this is my fucking home. They should know me. Okay? But they were jealous. And, I had nothing against them. I just didn't want to be involved with it no more. The life is not the life that it was. It changed. I feel it changed drastically after the movie The Godfather, because that was a downfall, in my opinion. All right, because after that, everybody wanted to become a gangster, try to get in life. These are the guys you call the wannabes. And as soon as the cuffs went on there, okay, what do you want to know? And I had to change my life, and I ended up writing my book. My son out here, he taught me gratitude, because I was a little bit upset initially when I came out of prison.
Speaking of your son, What have your children meant to you to get you through your next phase of life?
I'm going to tell you something. Without my children, my commissary would not have been full every month. Without their letters, without their love and their support, which is genuine, I never would have made it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have gave a shit. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have those 3 kids, I'd probably be back in prison. You know, I wouldn't give a fuck. You know, doing time's a waste of time. But, you know, I'm able to do time.
You're going to be coming up here in the next week or so from when this airs to the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, answering questions. So listeners, I urge you to, if you're not in Las Vegas area, to sign up and watch this remotely. Ori, when are you going to be at Mob Museum?
I'm going to be doing a question and answer on stage with Jeff Shoemaker. My books are going to be available for purchase at the Mob Museum, and I'd be autographing them for people there. And people who already bought a book and it was not autographed, I will be doing that there. I'll be answering any questions anybody got. And I want to thank Jeff Shoemaker and the Mob Museum for having me there.
What's the date on that?
May 11th at 7 p.m.
May 11th, 7 p.m. Folks, you've heard it. Make sure, if you're in Vegas, go. I'm going to go. So I'm looking forward to meeting Ori in person and having a chat with him and listening to his speech. Ori, thanks so much for taking time and telling a little bit about your life. We only hit a small snippet of it, but it's been fun.
Thank you, Tommy. This was a great interview. I appreciate you having me on here. And we'll meet up in Las Vegas.
That's right. Folks, if you would, please subscribe to my show. Go to Apple Podcasts or anywhere you find podcasts and subscribe to the show. Follow me on Instagram at Before the Lights Podcast. For show notes on this episode or any other podcast I have done, go to my website, beforethelightspod.com, and click on the episode page. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, a salute, a chin chin.